Before we get into this episode, there's something that might be of interest that I wanted to tell you about. Scene and Heard, who run this podcast, have been asked by Scotland Food and Drink to undertake a strategic review of the Scotland Food and Drink Excellence Awards. Now, these Excellence Awards have been going for almost 20 years and are a huge mainstay of the food and drink sector. But it's time to ensure that they're still relevant. So if you have ever been involved in the Scotland Food and Drink Excellence Awards, or even if you've ever had an opinion about them, we would love for you, please, to complete our survey. So if you go to the On Farm Twitter, which is at @on_farm UK, and click the link in the bio, there will be a tab in there that will take you to the survey, and it should only take you a very short while to complete, but we would be enormously grateful. Welcome and thank you for listening to this edition of the On Farm podcast in association with the Royal Highland and Agricultural Society of Scotland. I'm Anna Davis. Straight off the bat, a bit of housekeeping. We normally publish episodes on a Monday, but we're putting this one out today on Thursday the 18th of June 2020 because today should have been the start of the Royal Highland Show. We know many of you will be feeling a bit lost today. I know I certainly am, but hopefully we can help you get in the Highland Show spirit, even if we can't be there in person. Most of this episode is taken up with a wide-ranging chat between Highland Society Chief Executive Alan Laidlaw and Cabinet Secretary for the Rural Economy and Tourism, Fergus Ewing MSP.
I'm very proud of the fact that farmers have risen to the occasion. You know, I don't know that the cattle or the sheep know that we're in the middle of a pandemic. They'll keep producing milk, they keep needing to be fed.
There'll be lots to get our teeth into in that. First, though, we're taking a look back at everything so far in the Royal Highland Society podcasts. If you've not yet had a chance to listen to the 6 episodes leading up to this one, maybe this will whet your appetite.
Reality then really struck home at that point.
We started by asking RHASS's Alan Laidlaw, and in this clip, Chairman Bill Gray, to tell us how it felt making the monumental decision to cancel this year's show.
From an emotion point of view, I actually have a vivid memory of sort of saying, right, well, I'm sorry, but, you know, that is the decision. And I just suddenly thought, wow. We in the boardroom, the 4 of us, just looked at each other and we didn't say much for a couple of minutes, really, realistically.
Episode 2, Meet Me in the Usual Place, was all about the vital social connection of rural shows. We heard how the show sparks and rekindles valuable friendships and how staying connected is vital for all of our mental health. Also, how many people do you know who got romantically involved with someone they met at the Highland? Janie and Andrew did.
We had a few drinks.
Probably fair to say.
Yeah.
And we had a really good chat that night. And yeah, sort of after that we started to see a bit more of each other.
You started texting me. And do you remember what I asked you?
What did you
I said, how many acres do you have?
Oh yeah, probably.
Many people will miss the RET tent this year. Episode 3 was all about how their food education work has gone online to help homeschooling.
My name is Alison Bankier and I am a home economics teacher in East Kilbride. I've even got some kids who don't know the seasons, who can't name me the 4 seasons. And then even in the senior phase, across practical cookery and in health and food technology, to be able to teach that, we need RET. We couldn't probably do it without RET, and then all the links that they've got to other food education partners.
Episode 4 was called Taking Care of Business. We heard from some familiar names about the trade and deal making at the show and how business and pleasure can definitely mix. It makes those 4 summer days at Ingliston worth £65 million to the Scottish economy.
Day one of the Watson Seeds business for me was the Highland Show. So those 4 days in 1990, 30 years ago, were very, very key for me. You know, I rattled round and spoke to a good 200 clients, potentially.
I sometimes really struggle with the fine line that is business and pleasure. It's so much fun. My name is Robert Taylor. I'm a partner with Galbraith Property Land Agents. We do have hospitality on our stand. It can turn into a few old huriali, as they say in Gaelic. I think it's just a great thing. We can offer people a glass of something cold and a light refreshment. And if people want to come and speak to us, as I said, in months or years to come after that, then that's what we do.
Number 5 took us inside the food hall, Scotland's larder live, to look at how competitions and exhibitions at rural shows drive up food standards and benefit all of us as consumers. We heard from a range of top producers, including the Buffalo Farm's Steve Mitchell.
You know, if you've got a good product, the buyers will suss you out, and it's a great platform for that. You know,
for them to find you.
For them to find you or become aware of you, and then you're on their radar. So
absolutely. And in our most recent episode, the one just below this one in your podcast feed, we looked at what non-rural audiences get out of the show. What brings almost 250,000 people back year after year?
It's so varied. Chainsaw artistry, followed on by mountain bike stunts, and then go and grab a burger and listen to a ceilidh band.
We can drive through lots of fields and see lots of cows and say that we understand the agriculture of Scotland, but I think the only opportunity I've really got to learn anything about it is at the Royal Highland Show.
We also get to face a bit of the reality of food a little. You hunt for food, you know, if animals need to be deceased. It's good to face that, and it's a really good place to do it in a sensible and mature way.
In future episodes, we're going to meet with some of the show's award winners, hear about the history and heritage of the show, and find out how the Highland Society spends its money supporting various aspects of the rural economy and rural life. If you don't already, please subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. We also really need you to bang the drum for us and support us. Tell people around you that the On Farm podcast is here to tell the brilliant stories of rural Scotland. Especially tell people who might not know about podcasts or think they're for them. On Farm is always going to be free to listen to, and it's always going to be packed with stories and voices from rural Scotland. We're very much on your side, but we need your support simply through listening and sharing episodes to keep going. Here we go then. Earlier this week, we connected via video call with Alan Laidlaw, Chief Executive of RHASS, and Cabinet Secretary for Rural Economy and Tourism, Fergus Ewing MSP. It's a great, wide-ranging chat covering lots of important rural issues. Alan will take it from here.
Thank you, Anna. Hello, Cab Secretary. How are you today?
I'm fine, thanks, Alan. Yourself?
Good, I'm well, yeah. We would normally be welcoming you on the steps of Ingliston House, and you'd have a schedule as long as your arm of a places you needed to be, but slightly different circumstances this year. You're a regular visitor at the Highland Show and other shows, and I suppose it would be interesting to hear what you think the whole of the cancellation of these events is this year, and what that whole means to the community.
Well, you're absolutely right. I would be attending the Royal Highland Show. Obviously, it's the premier event in the agricultural calendar. And normally, Alan, I would attend on the Thursday and Friday. That gets me out of parliamentary duty. So, you know, I like getting out and about. And I do very much enjoy it. Although, as you say, the slight frustration is I never quite get enough time to spend in the food hall, for example, because, you know, there's just so many things that you would like to stop off and maybe do a wee bit of shopping for the family at home. But there usually with the schedule isn't the time because, you know, I'm going from one speaking engagement to another, usually about 10 or 12 events each day. But the really sad thing, I think, is that it's really the fulcrum of rural life in Scotland. It's greatly enjoyed by tens of thousands of people of all walks of life, and it really is sad that it won't be happening this year. But we'll be back. You'll be back next year. I'm quite sure. I hope I'll be back as well.
Yeah, of course. You know, your comments there are kind, and I think most people who've got busy schedules always feel that there's something round the corner at the show that they can't quite get to. It's you're very hands-on. You like to engage with your constituents of interest and of your constituency. You know, what does the Highland Show and other events like that give you as a chance to engage at that one-to-one level?
Well, it's a tremendous opportunity to catch up with people, and quite often I do arrange to meet specific groups, specific individuals at the Highland Show because everybody is there. And everyone's in a good mood in the Highland Show. It's usually the sun is out, everybody is looking cheerful. And, you know, farmers don't smile all the time, even when they get their payments on time from us. You know, there's not always smiling faces as I sit watching the assorted ranks of the NFU AGM in February. You know, even although we paid 18,674 from memory on time in October, actually 2 months earlier than the rest of the UK. I actually only got 3 thank you letters. Would you credit that, Alan?
I don't know if I might say that I'm surprised you got 3 sometimes, because I think farming community are sometimes slow to make their feelings known, and I think that's one of the things we've been talking about in some of the episodes of the podcast, about that social connection and that opportunity, as you say, for people to be in a good mood and to be hopefully relatively relaxed. And it's quite often a different type of conversation that you have at a show as you would at a desk or something else. Do you find that, do you think?
Yes, I do. I think people are by and large in a very cheerful mood. Many people will come down from the Highlands and maybe make a few days of it, and rightly so. And of course, also as well as the loss of the Highland Show, I mean, shows all over Scotland are not taking place this year. And for most of the last 3 decades, myself and my family go to the Nairn Show, the Granton Show, the Moy Game Fair, Nettie Games, the Inverness Games. Most years of the last 30 years, I've attended these events. And apart from being enjoyable, you attend because it is a chance to meet people locally. So all over the country, that experience for the rural segment of Scotland, the rural communities, to meet each other is lost. That's a very sad thing. I mean, I expect that when we emerge from lockdown, that, impromptu arrangements will be made, and, informal gatherings of various types will take place, hopefully observing social distancing and so on. But you can't make up for the real McCoy. So the loss of that, particularly sort of bonhomie that characterises the Highland Show, is a sad thing. Not only that, but it's an opportunity for many people to catch up with the latest in technology, the latest in innovation, to hear quite distinguished speakers at, for example, Ingliston House. It's an opportunity to do business for many, many farmers. So all these different interlocking parts of what people get out of the show will this year sadly not be available to us.
No, that's right, and I think it comes at a time when a lot of farmers have been in isolation through calving and lambing and sowing and planting and things in different pressures, and we always talk about the Royal Highland Show being a great coming together after that busy spell. I'd be interested to hear your views, Cabinet Secretary, on the farming and rural community response to COVID and how they've responded to what's happened and how they've developed and changed tacts, because as we know, farmers are entrepreneurial and resilient individuals, and they can make changes quite quickly, and you've probably seen quite a lot of that in your hot seat.
Well, I think the farming community of Scotland have really risen to the occasion. Farming is carried on throughout. I don't know that the cattle or the sheep know that we're in the middle of a pandemic. They'll keep producing milk. They keep needing to be fed and looked after. So farming has continued. I think what's not been immediately obvious has been that although farming has continued, there's been perhaps less assistance, less labour. I've spoken to many farmers who have done more of the physical side of farming themselves than perhaps in previous years, and one or two that have added several inches to their hair length, but on the other hand, lost a few inches around the waist through more frequent manual work. I'm very proud of the fact that farmers have risen to the occasion. I'm also proud of the fact that the RPID offices have done us proud. I haven't announced this year's payment performance and meeting the target, but let's just say that I'll have a smiley face when I make the announcement. I think that the people in the RPID offices have really done us proud. And the interesting thing there, Alan, is, and this is maybe something that we'll look to learn from the future, is that most of the 600 people that work in RPID have been working from home, but they've managed to maintain and perhaps improve their record this year, despite working from home. And I think more people are thinking, well, we can do more things from home than we realised. If we have, and once we get improved digital connection, ultra-fast or super-fast broadband, then I think post-COVID we will see people working, for Microsoft or Twitter or the Royal Bank of Scotland or BT, being able to live anywhere. And that, I think, could be an extraordinary boost to the rural economy. particularly if, as I hope, we can see post-COVID being able to do more things in the countryside with a looser planning system so that farmers and crofters are freed up to do more with the land they've got, with permitted development rights, for example, for housing. And if one of the impacts of COVID is more home working, more use of digital, less spending time in a tin can on the M8 or wherever, more time spent at home, more time with the family, more flexibility, all these things actually will, if you think about it, mean that there will be a boost to the popularity of life in rural Scotland, because in many, many ways, you can have a better quality of life in so many parts of rural Scotland than in some areas in our cities. So I think COVID might actually lead to some longer term changes. But getting back to your question, yeah, farmers have done a terrific job. They've kept the food on the table. They've reminded us of the importance of food and producing food here and the risks of global food security and the fragility of imports. All of these things are good news for farming, I think.
I think that's right, and there is a connection that people are making with food and where food comes from, like never before in recent memory. And you only need to see how people are worried about getting hold of staples, and the fact that we have flour shortages because people are baking and knowing how to bake is huge. I suppose, Cabinet Secretary, what part do you think that farmers and rural businesses can play in the immediate sort of position of helping lift lockdown and helping the recovery phase, if we can start to look beyond where we've been over the last few months?
Well, I think, working by example, farmers have carried on. That provides confidence to others that, life can resume. I've been very pleased that the whole supply chain, the processors, the abattoirs, the marts, have been able to continue. They've adapted very quickly. And also, I think there's maybe another area of change, which is that we've been pressing the supermarkets, retailers, and some of the food to go quite hard to support more local and Scottish and British produce, to import less, for example, meat. I've spent a lot of time speaking to the bosses of supermarkets, recognizing that many of them do quite a lot of good things. Many of them could do more. Some of them could do quite a lot more in supporting Scotch beef, for example, but also our dairy side and boost demand for dairy, because there's been a bit of pressure both on dairy and meat prices. The other thing that's happening is that there will be an interesting green beef plan come forward about how to farm more sustainably using environmental practice in the beef cattle side. We hope that will come forward fairly soon. There's an opportunity for Scotland to lead the world in that respect as well. So, the thinking hasn't stopped, even although the lockdown has carried on.
Yeah, that's right. And every business has thought about how they can cope with change and changes to supply chains and things like that. We've talked, and you've talked recently, Cabinet Secretary, about rural tourism and the key role that it plays on both farms and in our rural economy. I think lots of people heard you last week in Parliament talking about a potential resumption should all factors continue in the way that they have been around the 15th of July. Can you tell us a bit more about that and how optimistic you're feeling about the agri-tourism sector and rural tourism in general?
Indeed, well, I think agri-tourism has improved in leaps and bounds in the last 10 years and will continue to do so. You're right, Alan. Last week I announced the date of the 15th of July as the target date for resuming tourism, and that means all accommodation, and it means restaurants and bars, provided social distancing can be observed. It means visitor attractions as well. Most things really, apart from things like pop concerts and conferences where people are kind of cheek by jowl, that's more challenging. So the aim, Alan, is to remove the restrictions on general travel so that people from all over the UK can enjoy a holiday in Scotland, and especially welcome our friends from the south of the border, obviously, are always very welcome in Scotland. The aim is to resume on the 15th of July, provided the science is with us, and fingers crossed the virus's numbers are going in the right direction. They're going down at the moment, but I should make that caveat. What I've heard is that for some types of accommodation, there's been a very lively bookings response. I think in the self-catering side, less so in large hotels. So if you if you fancy a booking in Crieff Hydro or a Glen Eagles, or depending, I suppose, on your preference and your desire, then of course they do have vacancies at the moment. But there has been a good response to the announcement. I think the industry wanted a date to work towards, and I was able to persuade my health colleagues that it was a reasonable thing to do. It was a difficult judgment call. The other thing is, obviously, we've got the social distancing at 2 metres at the moment, and that's the right place for it to be right now. But, it's not written in blocks of stone. If the science moves forward, if the R number goes down, then I hope it will be possible to review that, because that's a real restriction on some businesses, not only being able to resume legally, but to resume profitably.
Yes.
Businesses won't go back if they can't make money. I'm conscious that the social distancing rule is a bit of a barrier there at the moment. Everybody recognises that, but both the Prime Minister and the First Minister at the moment, Alan, say that we have to stick with 2 metres, but I hope in the coming weeks and not months that we will see some movement on that.
Good. Well, I must admit, Cabinet Secretary, that in response to your announcement last week, I have booked an agri-tourism stay in the north of Fife in August. So we're looking for a change of scenery for our family to try and step away from some of our challenges that we've been facing living at cheek by jowl with each other for as long. So looking forward to that, looking forward to seeing a different part of the country and enjoying hopefully some good weather and seeing those recovery shoots coming through. We've made some of our podcasts recently we've featured Caroline Miller talking about agritourism, but we've also featured the business community about how important those conversations and those opportunities at the show are. But we've also talked about both RHET and RSABI as organisations that I know you are familiar with and, dare I say, probably fond of in terms of the things you've said in the past. What's the next thing that the farming community should be thinking about to make sure that we're as well placed to come out of COVID if those science and numbers are all heading in the right direction?
Farming in Scotland is achieving a period of pretty solid success at the moment. I think there are some particular COVID challenges. Obviously, with distilling having reduced a bit, there are concerns about the market for maltings, and of course, not just distilling, but the brewery, the beer side as well. There's also the fruit picking side that, we have seen some ingenious arrangements in the Angus area by some of the main players. So there are areas of immediate possible concern, the beef price and the dairy price I've mentioned as well. But by and large, I think, Alan, I get the feeling that an awful lot of people in farming are doing okay at the moment. The weather's been quite good. With the spring grass, it's been pretty good, as I understand, around most of the country. So things are going well. On the RHET and RSABI, yes, the Royal Highland Show does a great job in educating children. Every year, I think, is it 60 or 70,000 kids that you reach out to?
That's right, yeah.
So I think there's more that we can do to educate children. I would like to see every child in Scotland get the chance to visit a farm. I mean, if you're a boy in parts of Glasgow, I mean, I've heard it said that they don't know that chips come from potatoes, If you're a child, you only know what you can learn. I do think children learn by seeing and doing. And I very much hope that, we can see as we were about to progress before lockdown, a series of more children getting to understand farming, whether it be a farm visit or other means. And on the other side of things, RSABI is doing a great job. But the worrying thing, Alan, is that when the lockdown happened, I think I'm right in saying, from speaking to Nina in RSABI, that the number of customers doubled pretty quickly, which is a worrying sign. If you know of people that a neighbour that might be struggling a wee bit, there's no harm in reaching out and seeing if they can do with a wee bit of help. Often the first call is the toughest one. So I know from speaking to Nina, but also her team of counsellors, what a great job they do. And we did provide a little bit more money to enable them to hire some more expert counsellors, experienced people, experienced in life, able to have a conversation with a farmer of 60 on terms where they can be trusted and actually make a difference. So I was really impressed by RSABI from the work I've seen. So that's probably more important now than it has been.
I think that's absolutely right. And they've got their hashtag Keep Talking campaign that they've been running all the way through June. And we are helping with that, not just to promote it, but also the RHASS directors. We are doing a Phone 5 initiative. And that's about the conversations that you normally have around the Royal Highland Show that you know you're going to miss this year. Pick up the phone and speak to a few different people. And as you say, it might just be that phone call of, say, you know, I'm thinking of you, I'm missing the fact that we'll have a chance to have a chat at the ringside or at the bar or at the QMS briefing, you know, to see what might come and have that social interaction. It'll never replace what we can't have this year at the Royal Highland Show, but it does give you a chance to have some of those soft engagements.
Gentlemen, I'm terribly sorry to interrupt. This has been fascinating, and again, Cabinet Secretary, we're hugely grateful for your input. Thank you. I'm conscious we've just got 3 or 4 minutes left, and I wonder, Cabinet Secretary, if you'd mind just giving us a few further thoughts on the current debate going on about the standard of food imports and everything surrounding that.
Sure. Well, I fervently believe that we must protect ourselves against the importation of beef, for example, where that has not been produced in accordance with the very high standards of animal welfare, of looking after the animals, and of hygiene and traceability and provenance. We have the highest standards in the world here. And, you know, we've learned the hard way over the years with disease problems. In some countries, there's no provenance whatsoever. None. No ability to determine where a problem has arisen if there's a disease problem. So I think there's a very strong mood in the farming communities that this is something that must be done by government. Michael Gove did assure me some time ago last year that this would be included in a trading bill about trade. I don't think that's happened as yet. I think there was an amendment from a Tory MP, actually, to make this the law, which was rejected. So I'm not quite sure where we are at the moment. But as far as, I really don't want to be political, but I think the overwhelming view of farmers in Britain, not just Scotland, is we must be protected against the flooding of cheaper imports, cheaper because they don't have to comply with the same standards in abattoirs, for example, or traceability, protection against disease, welfare. If you don't have these standards, you can produce more cheaply and you can undercut the prices in Britain as a result. That's not right. That must be prevented. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to make that clear.
Thank you very much. And I know from your ongoing support of Scotland Food and Drink, for example, that you support in exactly the same way we do, that Scotland is a land of food and drink with the most phenomenal reputation, and we need to make sure that reputation stands strong.
Well, indeed, and that's it's one of Scotland's greatest assets, and it will continue to be. With post-COVID, we will continue to be producing high-quality food thanks to Scotland's farming community, and I'm very proud of them.
I think that's right, that we don't miss the opportunity to make those connections and celebrate them, whether that's at home because we're getting local deliveries of local food, or whether it's at something like the Royal Highland Show. Cabinet Secretary, I always like finding out where they would first head to if they had a free schedule at the Royal Highland Show. So if your ministerial diary was cleared for the day and you're walking in the gate at Ingliston with a full Highland Show going on, if you had open choice, where would you go to first?
Well, I probably would go first to where I normally go first, which is to get a good rolling sausage at the QMS stand. I think I'd head there first because after I consume that, then everything else in the day would tend to go pretty well.
I'm sure Alan Clark and the team would be delighted to hear that.
That was a great chat, and thank you to the Cabinet Secretary and to Alan Laidlaw. And thank you for listening and being with us. That's it from me for a while. It'll be Monty with the next episode, which will be released on Monday the 29th of June. If you're listening on the day this episode is first released, that's Thursday the 18th of June, the first day of what should have been the Highland Show. It's also National Keep Talking Day from RSABI, so we'll leave you this time with a few words about the Keep Talking campaign from RHASS Chairman Bill Gray.
We're all going to miss everything about the show. The spectacle, the buzz, the colour, the atmosphere, livestock, trade stands, horses, food. all the things that we normally enjoy when we go to see the show. However, I think the thing that will be missed the most is the social interaction and the ability to catch up with friends that you haven't seen for quite some time. So to help RSABI's Keep Talking campaign, the Society is launching its Phone 5 initiative. So what we're asking you to do is to pick up the phone and speak to 5 people that you would normally speak to during the show, or you'd normally catch up with during the show. It'll be the hashtag Phone 5 initiative. So John, Neil, Rob, Colin, Kalina, you're going to get a call from me shortly. Pick up the phone, everybody. Call 5 people that you would normally speak to at the show and make a date to meet up again at next year's show. So here's looking forward to 2021.